Hello and welcome to the Pitt Mailbag Show from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. We're your hosts, Chris Carter and Stephen Thompson, your Pitt beat reporters here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. As always, subscribe to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette by going to post-gazette.com. Subscribe to this show for free by going to our YouTube page, liking this video, or subscribing to Post-Gazette Sports on your favorite podcasting app, as well as subscribing on YouTube to get all of our Tuesday episodes of the Pitt Mailbag Show, as well as all the daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Stephen, we had a pretty active week one. Lots of stuff went down leading up to the game, but eventually the game got there, and then lots of stuff went down in Pitt's offense. They win 55-24. We did our post-game show. Go check that out afterwards. But now we get to field questions from the fans, but we have plenty of our questions ourselves, too, after seeing that, and how much of what we saw last Saturday will translate to the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, the level of competition takes a big step up this week. I think Pitt checked a lot of boxes against Kent State, but now they're going to really get tested, and we're going to see just how much of what we saw on Saturday is for real, and if it's genuine, and if they can carry this over into a much more difficult part of their schedule.
Absolutely. Let's get to some of your questions. By the way, if you ever want to submit a question, email either of us at our Post-Gazette accounts, which you can find on all of our articles at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, or just hit us up on Twitter. Either way, we're happy to get your questions on the show. This first question comes from Travis, who asks, how much stock can we put into Eli Holstein's performance this week? Kent State did not seem to offer much resistance. And Travis isn't wrong, Stephen. I mean, Kent State's one of the worst teams in college football last year, and they didn't look too much better in this game. They got a little bit of pressure on him, but by and large, Eli Holstein did pretty much what he wanted to do throughout the game. 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, threw the ball pretty much around the yard. Do you put a whole lot of stock into this, or are you kind of skeptical? Like, I need to see it against like an ACC level opponent.
Yeah, I'm certainly not putting him on my Heisman ballot just yet, but I think he did a lot of encouraging things. I mean, he was accurate. He took some risks and threw the ball downfield, was pretty successful in that area. He operated the offense, I think, really well. He didn't have any false start penalties or illegal procedures, anything like that, which Pat Narduzzi mentioned was a really big box to check, kind of commit with this new offense facing its first game action of the year. So I think in that sense, he did a lot of good things. I would love to see him do it again against Cincinnati, which obviously a much more talented team. The size is going to be different. Just playing a power conference opponent is going to be very different from playing Kent State. But I think you would not be wrong to be very encouraged by what he showed. There were just certain things that he did that no quarterback Pitt had last year was able to do against any team. I mean, like last year's team played Wofford, and Phil Dracovic did not look nearly as good as Eli Holstein did in this game against Kent State. So I think you can adjust for the level of competition. I don't think he's going to throw for 330 yards and 3 touchdowns in every game, but I think he showed that he, at the very least, has the tools necessary to be Pitt's guy and to be a very good starter for Pitt moving forward.
I feel you on that. I think the thing that should, like you said, everyone should find encouraging if you're a Pitt fan, is that it was his decision making that was impressive. It wasn't just that. It wasn't like he was just faster than everyone. It wasn't just like, well, these guys are just bullying them off the ball. He faced pressure in this game. He had to read coverages in this game. He had to throw accurate passes, and he had to not get baited into certain situations. And one time he even said, hey, they ran a good coverage on this play that he threw an interception on. But for the most part, he read the defense, knew where the ball was going, was on time, and looked like he understood Kade Bell's system. That is, to me, more than half the battle for these quarterbacks right now. Is just knowing your system, getting the ball out, making the smart reads, and then letting the guys make the plays after that. As far as that part, Eli Holstein is right where you want him to be if you're looking at a red. And again, he's a redshirt freshman. He is a baby. They have 4 years of this guy if he sticks around for his entire college career at Pitt. Granted, that doesn't happen too often anymore these days anywhere in college football. But again, you should be encouraged, and you should feel good reason to be excited to see him get a chance to play against a team like Cincinnati, who they'll play this Saturday at noon. And by the way, both of us will be there covering that at Nippert Stadium in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah, and I think the youth, I think, is also a very encouraging thing. Like that was his first career game, much less, start. So he's going to grow. He's going to get better while the competition does get a little bit better. I think the good thing is that the schedule is kind of, it's more forgiving early. I think Cincinnati and West Virginia are good teams. They're certainly better than Kent State, but they are not like, Clemson or even Louisville or some of the other teams that Pitt's going to face in the ACC in the second half of the year. So, he's going to get to warm up a little bit, get his feet wet, and really figure out college football before the schedule really starts to get more difficult.
I hear you on that. Let's move on to the next question. This one comes from Jordan, who asks, should we be concerned with the lack of depth at running back with Rodney Hammond unavailable? Now, of course, as Pitt announced on Friday, Rodney Hammond's ineligible for the entire season. We did our best digging. We've been reaching out. We're still reaching out, trying to figure out what's going on. But mum has been the word around Pitt. No one seems to know. The one thing we're able to report is that we were told it is not for an academic reason that Rodney Hammond is ineligible for the 2024 football season. We also don't know if this means that this is his last year of eligibility to use, because he's a senior this year. Granted, I don't think he's redshirted, so technically he could redshirt this season and be available next season, but we don't know what's going on there. So we can't report on that. But we can talk about the running back depth. But I don't know about you, Steven, but I saw 3 running backs getting used in this game. Desmond Reed, who popped off for big yards, went for like 140-ish and had a really long touchdown. Also took a punt return back for a touchdown. You had Daniel Carter, averaged 7 yards a pop, going 4 carries, 28 yards. And you had Derek Davis Jr., who didn't have a whole bunch of yards, but he did have a 13-yard run and a really rough, tough touchdown run. Actually, not a 13-yard run. That was Holstein under that. But he did have a touchdown run in short distance, and he also had a 20-yard run called back on a hold. So I looked at this, and I think Pitt still has 3 relevant running backs. And by the way, they still got young dudes like Juelz Golf and Montrevious Lloyd, who at some point may get worked in over the season.
Yeah, I think the one thing that concerns me is they're kind of one injury away from being in a tough spot in terms of their running back depth. Reed, like you said, he was electric on Saturday. He is still only 5'8" and 175 pounds. And I know he's really tough. Pat Narduzzi talked about that a lot. He, kind of bounced back from a little hamstring or calf injury early in the game on Saturday against Kent State. But, we saw guys even like Israel Abanikanda, who was built. He was, 6-something and 200 pounds, 210 pounds. He was a big dude. And even he got hurt at times. Even he had to miss a few games during that really impressive season he had 2 years ago. So I'm just not banking on Reed being available for every game this season, or at least not yet. I think Derek Davis has some talent, but we haven't really seen what he can do as a starting running back, as a workhorse back. So, I think they've got talented players there. I'm not concerned about, I guess, the quality of the backs that they have with Rodney Hammond not there. I just think that given Reed's body type and just given his size and given how much he touched the ball, he had 20-plus touches in addition to special teams work on Saturday. And that's a lot of work throughout an entire season for a guy like that who especially hasn't played FBS football before this Saturday. So I just think you look at you're keeping a close eye on Reed's health and how they use him moving forward and the workload that he gets because, I think they're fine for right now. They're really one injury away, I think, from being in a pretty tough spot.
I do think that an injury to Desmond Reed would certainly put a big tamper on things. I really think Derek Davis is a really good option for the future. I think that he can be a danger. I think he has some home run speed to him that we haven't had a chance to really see much of yet. And I think we also saw he can run hard. I also think Daniel Carter is a fine third option to go there. He's a stronger presence. He can kind of switch up the tempo for you a little bit. But I do agree, like behind them, like part of what Pitt's offense is doing right now, the high volume of plays, it requires a running back rotation. You need to get guys rest. And like you're saying, if one guy goes down, all of a sudden that rotation's down to 2, and now you're wearing those guys down, and then you're starting to look around like, okay, who else can play running back? So I do agree, one injury away. But as far as like right now, I think a 3 running back rotation that you probably feel a little confident about right now. I think that'll be fine to get the job done, keep guys healthy, and then see if you can get up one of those younger players like Lloyd or Goff, and Goff, who we do know is injured at right now. We don't know the extent of the injury or how serious it is. But if you can get one of those guys to step up as well, then I think you'll be swimming pretty there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point, too. I mean, you kind of were able to peel back the curtain a little bit from Pat Narduzzi, who might have accidentally
He definitely let it slip. Like
yeah,
when I say,
yeah, go ahead. You can tell.
It was just funny because he was like, we got running back depth, and we got look, this guy's over here, that goes, and by the way, Joel's Goff, he's gonna be back. And I was like, what's he gonna be back from, Pat? And he was like, nothing. And I was like, no. You don't get away with that, Mr. Pat Narduzzi. You little sly dog. But Pat, college coaches don't have to give up injury information, so he chooses not to unless it's a season-ending injury. The fact that he did that, though, is a good sign. It's not a season-ending injury, and who knows when he could be back.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's the other thing. Goff not being available, that's something that could have hurt you as well. But I think Hammond's ineligibility, Goff's injury, that made me a little bit wary. But I think if you can get Goff back, I feel a little bit better. It's just if you just like I said, you're just one injury away. It won't look pretty. I think if you have to, it's not ideal if you have to turn to a couple freshmen as your backups or Daniel Carter, who doesn't really have the same speed or breakaway abilities that a Desmond Reed does.
I hear you on that. Let's move on to Jonathan's question, who asks, if Pitt's defense can give up 2 long touchdowns to Kent State, doesn't that mean they're going to give up a lot more in the ACC? And a very reasonable question. You did see 2 long touchdowns get scored by Kent State in this game. Both long passing plays. One was a 36-yard reception down the middle of Pitt's defense, something that I think we've definitely seen in the past. I think the really frustrating part of that is it came on 4th down. Like if Pitt gets that stop, they're up 14-0 with the ball back in their hands. All they've done is, and then they would just continue to pile on Kent State and make it a non-issue. And then their other touchdown was also a 29-yard reception that was thrown, both, by the way, in the direction of PJ O'Brien. Now, as Pat Narduzzi alluded, I don't think PJ was in bad position on the second one. I think it was just hey, ball was there. He made the catch. Maybe he made the catch. Maybe he bobbled it a little bit, but they ruled it a catch, so it was. I do think, though, it is a sign that, hey, this problem that's normally plagues Pitt's defense, it's still going to be there. And, yeah, if Kent State's hitting it, best believe that Cincinnati, West Virginia, North Carolina, Clemson, all them teams, they're looking at that and saying, hey, when Pitt's doing all that blitzing, these are the things we have to get ready for, and this is the points where we're going to be able to attack and get big plays.
Yeah, I think the one thing that offers me a little bit of comfort is kind of the old cliche about how teams do the most growing from week 1 to week 2 in college football. A sport without a preseason that kind of tracks. But obviously, you're one of your starting safeties, one of your veteran starting safeties, being not picked on, but being targeted against on those 2 long touchdown passes is a little bit of a problem. And I think, the first one that PJ O'Brien gave up, he was just overeager, I think. Narduzzi said he undercut the route when he thought he could get a pick, and he wasn't in position to get that one. There's another, long catch and run where Donovan McMillan is missing a tackle. It's not something he does very often either. I think these mistakes, that's all to say, I think these mistakes are correctable. I think these are things that they won't do as often going forward. I think that they're pretty easy things to identify on film and pretty easy things to correct. I mean, O'Brien, I think, is a very he plays with a lot of energy. He always wants to make the big play. So that's just something you got to kind of, as an older guy, I think you would want him to kind of have a better understanding of the situation and where Pitt is on the field, what the down and distance are. Like you said, it was 4th down, so he's got to be comfortable just getting a stop, not getting an interception. Then, Don McMillan's got to do what he's done for most of his career at Pitt, and that's be a sure tackler. So I think this stuff is really correctable. I don't think they're going to – I don't think that how poorly the secondary played, in my opinion. I didn't think they were particularly great on Saturday against Kent State, but I think they will get better because the mistakes that they made are correctable.
And also, this is part of Pat's defense.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Randy Bates, their whole defense is, we're going to blitz you. We're going to blitz you a lot. And if you win one-on-one, great, because we're bringing it again next time. And and if we didn't get you last time, we're going to get you this time. And it's part of what I think has made a lot of the Pitt secondary guys, Pitt defensive backs that have made it to the NFL. People see like, hey, that guy's a dog. Like, yeah, he got burned for a 50-yarder on this last play, but then he went down and shut this guy down for the rest of the game because that's what he had to do at Pitt to survive. You don't get to live out there at cornerback if you don't do well. And I thought for the most part, Pitt's cornerbacks actually held up. It was Pitt's safeties that got beat at times in this game. I'm encouraged to see how they take it on. And I want to remind people, go back to that ACC championship season, and you remember the ups and downs of that defense. You know, Kenny Pickett was putting points up on the board, but the defense, they had some really great games. They also had some really bad games. You think back to Western Michigan, that they lost to that game, the Miami game where they got beat a lot, and even the first quarter of the Wake Forest game, it was back and forth, unstoppable scoring until eventually that pressure started to set in. And they were the ones dictating the pace of football for the last 3 quarters of the game. I think that if Pitt's defense grows and learns in the right direction, they can get to the point where, like, yeah, some mistakes will get made, but eventually they're going to get cleaned up. And with the aggression that they like to play, it puts a lot of pressure on offenses to figure it out and do so while they're taking lots and lots of hits, because that stuff does take a toll on you.
Yeah, I would agree about the corners. I think you make a good point there. Like, they were not the issue here. I mean, there was one play where I think Timon Lynham gave up a long pass, and he was lucky it got called back because of offsetting penalties. But I think for the most part, you didn't notice Rylan Gandy or Rashad. I mean, there was one drive, I think, where Rashad Battle, gave up a few longer pass plays, and it ended with a touchdown for Kent State. But I think for the most part, you're spot on that the corners really weren't the issue, which is not something that I expected. I expected Pitt was going to give up some big plays, especially early in the season. It was going to be because these new corners are finding their footing a little bit, not the safeties.
I feel you there. Last question comes from Caden, who asked, we go back to the Pitt's offense, and Caden hit me with some stats here. So I was like, okay, Caden, we got you. He says, Pitt targeted Sincerely 10 times, Kade Bell 9 times, Kenny Johnson 8 times, Raphael Williams 7 times, and Gavin Bartholomew 5 times. Is this how Kade Bell's offense is supposed to work? Now, this question was also a lot longer. I kind of broke it down because Caden went in on, like, Gavin's supposed to be the focal point of his offense. Why was he only getting 5 targets? All these other guys weren't. And I thought it was interesting when Pat Narduzzi talked about Gavin, and he actually talked about him Monday when we were addressing things with him, because this is constantly what you want to say about these type of things. You don't want to ever force the ball to one guy unless that guy is like Jerry Rice or like Randy Moss, and he's that unstoppable. In general, you want your quarterback to be taking what the defenses gives you and to be making the right decisions. And the quote that Pat Narduzzi said, if they're double covering somebody or doing something where we can't get the ball to one guy, the coverage always dictates. I know everyone likes to get Gavin Bartholomew the ball, and we got to this weekend. He talks a little about the matchup this weekend, but then he says, but you want to spread the ball around. But again, it's not like Eli or Nate Yarnell dropped back to pass to throw it to a guy that you just want to throw it to because he's good. It's all based on coverage. And I think we're getting to see a lot of drop 8 coverage this weekend too. Drop 8 coverage means Cincinnati's going to be dropping 8 men into coverage, a lot of plays, and rushing 3. So that's a separate story. But the point that Pat is making, and the point that I'm making here, if Caden's question is about Gavin Bartholomew specifically, it probably went to Gavin because that's just who was open on those plays. Sincere Lee was also in the game a bit longer. When Pitt went up, they started to take certain guys out. So I think that's part of why he kept getting targeted. But like Kade Bell is the number 1 wide receiver on this team. Kenny Johnson looks like the number 2 wide receiver on this team. Granted, Raphael Wilson looked like also a number 2 wide receiver on this team. So I think part of it is this offense is designed to hurt you in so many different ways that if you are focusing a lot of your attention on one specific player, then you are doing yourself a disservice. You got to take what's there. And I think in this game, that's what it was. But now what we'll tell is when they start playing better opponents, will this maintain? Will this spread maintain, or will it focus in on one person and leave out other people? Now, because that's the question, Steven. If Gavin Bartholomew, like 5 catches for 66 yards, if he averages that all season, he's going to have the most yards he's had in his time at Pitt ever. So, that's just that's a better rate than he's ever had. But will he do that? That's a big question.
Yeah, I think, and the thing that we both kind of said to each other, I think during and after the game was, if Gavin was getting completely iced out of the offense and they weren't moving the ball, that would be an issue. If he was only getting, if he was fifth on the team in targets and they weren't, scoring touchdowns, then that's a problem because you feel like you're not utilizing all the talent that you have at your disposal. But I mean, other guys were cooking. And so this is kind of what this offense is all about. As soon as you try to zero in on one person or one concept or one kind of route, there's, 4 or 5 others that Eli Holstein has to choose from that he can take. I think this offense is a lot about choice and options and putting some trust into your players to make the right reads and make the right decisions when they're on the field. So I think it's hard to say that Eli Holstein didn't make a lot of really good decisions, and Bartholomew 5 catches. That's really good. I think that's good to show that you are getting him involved, but there was no need to force anything to him. And so, that's why he didn't get the ball more or why he didn't, amass some more yards. I don't think it's anything more complicated than that. I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. There will be games where I think Gavin has a Kenny Johnson-like day where he does go over 100 yards and has a touchdown or 2. It just didn't happen today for whatever reason or it happened this week for whatever reason because other guys were playing really well and they were open and Eli was able to find them.
Absolutely. We will keep you up to date with all things at Pitt at the facility this week. Both Steve and I will be there today, Tuesday, as we get to watch a little bit of Pitt practice heading into their week 2 game against Cincinnati. Get to talk to some players and coaches. And of course, throughout the week, we'll get to talk to Pat Narduzzi again on Thursday. But hey, a lot of reasons I think to be excited about this Pitt team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We'll keep you up to date with all of that from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thank you for checking out the Pitt Mailbag Show here from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of the daily content from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you this weekend when we're at Nippert Stadium covering Pitt at Cincinnati to see how real are these Pitt Panthers. Stick with us. We'll keep you posted. Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.